come with me as I launch a collection of art. I'm so excited to share the behind the scenes exclusive of everything that goes on in order to have a collection launch. My name is Wendy Brightville, and I help artists go from hobby artist to professional artist. And so I really just want to invite you behind the scenes of a collection launch. So as many of you know, I have been making this shift in my style, and I have been really playing with some softer, more blended type of work with oil paints. It all started when I attended an art retreat and I was able to learn a whole bunch from Elaine Spears. And it was sort of a pivotal moment in my shift and in the way that I'm choosing to explore in my creative style and shifting in the type of work that I'm producing. So first of all, I just want to mention that there's a lot of work that has already gone on inside of my head before I ever even started to work on canvases. And that is because I think it's important, especially when you are wanting to make a shift or even wanting to put out a new collection of art, that you should test out some of your composition ideas actually on paper first. That is sort of the foundation, ground level type of work that you need to be doing before you start working on canvas. So that's kind of what the foundation is for this collection launch. And I want to say that I really decided to do kind of a more softer launch this time. And that just means that I didn't take as long as maybe would have been more beneficial to really take the time to build anticipation with my audience. I didn't set a specific date and tell my audience, okay, I'm launching this collection on September 15th at such and such a time, that type of thing. I decided to do sort of a softer launch to my email list first. And the reason I decided to do that is because I wanted to, before I, fully committed, to really just get a sense of whether or not my collectors and my audience would respond to this type of work. And so you can do that. And so what I recommend, if you're wanting to have a bigger collection launch, to sort of do a smaller one first and learn from that launch and basically see what is selling in order to streamline the type of work that you're wanting to create. So I ended up launching 13 pieces on canvas and 13 pieces on paper because I felt like that was a good amount for this first launch. And so the sizes were a little bit on the smaller side. I didn't go really large. I went from, most of them were 8x10s, 12x12s, and 11x14s, which are still kind of on the smaller size, although not as small as my minis, which are 8x8s. And the reason I decided to do that sort of that smaller mid-range of sizes is because I really just wanted to, again, get a feel for whether or not my audience would respond to this specific type of style. So that's what I decided on. And I feel like I learned a lot, and I can't wait to share with you at the end, really how this collection launch did. It's only been about 24 hours. So I'll kind of share with you the numbers and we will get into it. Course, and Diva is in the background brushing her teeth. This is my life. I go to record YouTube videos and someone is brushing their teeth in the background. This is real life. Okay, there you go. Want to just tell you that anytime I launch a collection, I have to clear out space on the wall that's behind me and start hanging all of the art. I like to treat any collection launch almost like I'm hanging an art show. Anyways, I'm gonna wait for the child to stop brushing their teeth. So anytime I am in the process of finishing up a collection of art and I'm getting ready to actually launch this collection, I like to treat it almost as if I am hanging my very own personal art show. Even though it's virtual, I think it's actually a really powerful thing to do as an artist. And I basically have a wall that's in my studio where I can hang and style my art. And what I like to do when I am wanting to, let's say, photograph and list all of my paintings is I like to put them together almost as if they are a collection in an art show. And so what I do is I kind of curate it. I make it look really nice and as if, you know, they all are a collection of art that, you know, that I will be able to photograph together, and then I will list each individual painting. But I think one of the best things about going about, you know, marketing your art in this way is you want to show how your art looks almost curated within a group of paintings. So I have a lot of art right now and I'm trying to decide, you know, which pieces I want to be part of this collection. And not only that, as I'm hanging them on the wall, I can kind of get a better feel for each piece individually. And there's still a few of them that I'm not entirely sure about the composition. And so as I'm hanging them on the wall, I'm also really looking at how do I like this piece? Does it need to be edited? And sometimes when I hang a painting or a group of paintings, I feel like, you know, something sticks out to me and I'm like, you know what, there's something not quite right about this composition. So this is kind of this in-between phase where I am really just sitting with each piece. And it does help to actually physically hang all of your pieces together on a wall, because you can return to it later and sort of look at it over a period of time, whether it's, just a few days or even a week, a month, where you just really kind of sit with each piece and see if anything needs to be tweaked, fixed, corrected, all of the above. Okay. And so I have a range of pieces. I probably have around 9 to 10 pieces right now. And I'm trying to decide if I want to add any more, take any away. The other thing that I want to talk about is, there needs to be some sort of common thread woven throughout the pieces. And so is it a type of style? Is it a technique? Is it a color palette? What is it that sort of ties all the pieces together? And I think that as you're hanging all of the work, you want to be able to see that thread being woven throughout all of the pieces. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to sort of sit with it, decide whether or not this collection is finished, and whether or not I just want to go ahead and launch this collection, or do I want to add a few pieces, right? My sizes, my range of sizes right now are I have a few 8x10s. I have a few, I have a few 8x10s, a few 11x14s, and a few 12x12s. And I think I might even have a 16x20, but it's good to have almost like a range of sizes. And it really just depends on your audience and your collectors, your customers, what size of work you want to release. I think as I fine tune my process, I'll probably, see how this type of work does with my audience and with my collectors. And I'll use the information that I get from the collection launch to fine tune what's working for my audience and what isn't working for my audience. I have already sort of been putting my feelers out onto social media. I've been not contacting, but I've done a few posts where I've been talking about this new work. I posted a reel yesterday where I shared some of the new pieces just to get a feel for who is interested and what pieces are really speaking to people. And then the other important piece for marketing that I think a lot of artists kind of skip over this piece, and that is really start building your email list before you're ready to launch your collection. And so doing 2 to 3 posts where you are giving a little bit of a teaser about the kind of collection that you're creating, and then also going ahead and asking, hey, if you want to be one of the first people to find out when this collection launches, go ahead and join my collectors list. And this is probably one of the most important things to do if you are wanting to start consistently selling your art online, and that is to build your collector's email list. And I feel like I wish I had started so much sooner and started collecting those emails so much sooner. So I just want to mention that because I think that's a really important piece. Whether you are launching from an Etsy shop, whether you're launching from Instagram, whether you're launching from, I don't know, your own website, wherever you're actually going to be selling those pieces, it's really important that you have an email list for selling your art. And that is really because honestly, it's not enough to just be able to share on social media just because it's so not necessarily trustworthy, right? It can be sporadic, and especially on Instagram these days, I often feel like the people who are my collectors, who are wanting to maybe buy a piece of my art, they don't always see my posts. And so taking a good amount of time to build up that anticipation, and even maybe setting your collection date and saying, okay guys, I am going to be launching this collection at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on September 15th, right? And then take 2 weeks, 3 weeks to share and storytell around your collection of art and tell the story behind it, talk about what the meaning is behind each piece of art, and really take that time to build up the anticipation for each piece. So this is a piece that I started yesterday, and when I came back to it, I actually didn't really like the composition and the way that it was working in terms of especially the vase. I really felt like it needed a different shape and that all of the green sort of needed to be broken up a little bit. The vase that I had originally, there was nothing necessarily wrong about it. It just wasn't working for the composition of this piece. And so I felt like I needed to sort of switch it out. So that's the nice thing about oil paint, is you can just wipe up any areas that you're not particularly loving and then paint over it, right? Or you could wait for it to dry and then paint over it again. But I was not feeling very patient. So what I did was I just got sort of the shape that I wanted. And so I decided to use more of like a pitcher type of vase. And I didn't want it to be like too realistic. I wanted it to feel sort of abstracted. And so I left portions of the background sort of showing through in places. But I just cut out a vase from a photograph and traced around it just to get the general idea of the shape. And I think I like it. I think it breaks up the background a little bit more with this just solid color. And I think that by doing that, I was able to allow for the flowers to really shine a little bit more. And then I've just been editing. And so in different places of the background, I'm just taking my wet wipe or my cloth, and I'm just wiping up certain areas, blurring out other areas, and really trying to, again, focus on softening in my background and in my choices of elements that I'm adding into this composition, right? And so it's not easy because, again, remember, I'm kind of really focused on shifting in my style. And a lot of this is outside of my comfort zone. I'm used to working in much harder edges. And so softening up in this way is a challenge for me. And then also finding the balance between loose and messy, and even just adding this red line coming down through here. That is, again, almost like an abstraction of the flower, right? And so playing with, this balance of softening my background, making my flowers still somewhat stand out, right? Because I'm used to creating something with way more contrast in my work. And so that's kind of like this dance that I'm continuing to sort of navigate through in creating this collection of work, is how do I find that balance, right? And again, anytime I talk about, shifting in your style and trying all of these new ways of expressing yourself, it is like a dance, right? And so I think that, also before I finish talking about this piece and move on to the rest of the collection that I've been working on, I want to say that one of the challenges for this painting was that it is a paint over. And so anytime you're working from a different piece, so this was actually one of my butterfly paintings, and I knew that it had some elements that I could keep certain aspects of it for turning it into a floral painting. And so anytime you are doing like a paint over where you're taking something that's already been done, an older piece of art, and you're covering over it, you're faced with a different type of challenge, right? I'm not working from scratch, and I don't necessarily have a reference photo. I'm just taking what I already have and turning it into another painting. And so that was the unique challenge about this piece, was taking something that was already done, incorporating aspects that were already there, and leaving some of those elements and letting it kind of become something else. And this is something that I recommend for a lot of especially newer artists. Anytime you have older work that you're just not feeling anymore and you're wanting to almost reinvent yourself, which is kind of what I'm doing right now. I'm in this process of, reinventing myself and my style and figuring out the direction that I want to go in. And, anytime you're doing any of that, it takes this place of, just thinking through your compositions differently, trying out different skills, and that's what I was going to say. I've totally lost my train of thought while I was in the middle of saying that. So if you have old work that is sitting around in your shop, like this was a butterfly piece that I've had for probably 6 months to a year. It's been sitting in my Etsy. They haven't really done very well, so this type of painting was kind of a newer exploration for me. I haven't really sold any of them, and so I think I had like 4 or 5 of them in this type of similar type of painting, right? It was sitting in my shop, and it's taking up space physically in my home. And so finding ways to, reuse just the canvas itself and allow for something new to come out of it. It's really important to moving on and getting back into the creative flow in your business and in your life. And so I recommend that if you have old work that's just kind of been sitting and you don't actually feel like it's you anymore, or it's just been sitting around taking up space, right? Everything is about moving into a different place in your creative flow. And so because this piece was just sitting around, it was time for it to take on a new life, right? And so getting rid of old work by painting over it, I think, is a really good thing for reinventing yourself, right? And so I just wanted to mention that really quickly. I have another painting that is actually, I have 4 that are the butterfly pieces that I decided to paint over. And so, yeah, I just wanted to mention that because I think that sometimes we get so attached to our art and we have a hard time letting go of older work that it's holding us back from going to a new place in our style and in our creative practice, right? And so anyways, I feel pretty good about this one. I have a whole collection of art that I'm wanting to finish up. And I think I have maybe 8 or 9 pieces right now. And the goal is to see if I can't get to like 10 or 12. So we'll see. I just wanted to videotape myself as I'm making some of these corrections and sort of bring you along with me as I do that. So I'm in the process of preparing my paintings to list them and to launch this collection of art that I have just finished. I think this will probably be the first section. I'll probably do more than one collection of art. And like I mentioned, you really want to take what you learn from the first collection and use that information to get better and just really, what's the word that I'm looking for? Streamline the type of art that you're wanting to sell. And one of the most powerful things that you can do as an artist is take what you learn from your art collection launches to then go create work that is selling better, right? So anyways, I'm in the process of really just styling my art on my staging wall right now. And I wanted to mention, because I think that one of the challenges that I've talked to artists about in the past is knowing how to style some of your paper pieces. And so I have some really amazing ways to go about styling your paper pieces. So one of the easiest and quickest ways to actually styling your paper pieces, I know this is so like formal and official and super like over the top fancy, right? Not really, but it's actually just to take a clipboard and pop your art onto a clipboard, take photos of it on the clipboard. You can even hang like more than one on a wall, just like you would hang paintings, and just slide each piece of art up there and take a photo and move on to the next one. So that's one of the easiest ways to style your art. But really what you want to do is give your customer a feel for what your art will look like hanging in their home. So other things that you can do with paper pieces, you can pop them in a frame, take a few photos, and then use that for your listing. I prefer not to do that, and here's why. I don't like taking, for one, it takes a lot of time. The amount of time that it takes you to pop each individual painting into a frame, it really, especially if you have like 10 to 15 pieces of art, it's going to take you a long time. And then the other annoying thing about styling and photographing your art in a frame is if there's glass, then you really have to then deal with the reflection of the glass in your photos. And sometimes that can mess with really the quality of artwork. So just be careful with that. And so I just prefer to keep it simple. And that's why I just use something like this. The other thing that you can potentially do is you can have a frame that is like just a blank frame, and you could hang an open frame on your wall, tape the paper piece to the center, or you can just have a frame that has something sort of like what's the word that I'm looking for? Like something framed that is neutral, right? And then you can tape the piece of paper in the center of the frame. Does that make sense? So let me show you what that would look like. Okay, so this is the perfect example. This is a gold frame, and then you're just gonna get some tape. And I prefer to just kind of roll it in the back and make sure that I don't put any tape on the front of my painting. This, you guys are gonna laugh at me. I'm using medical tape because I can't find my painter's tape. Such a goof. I always misplace it, and then I'm like, when I need it, I don't have it. Okay. So this is just to give you an idea. It's not perfect at all. Ta-da! And my frame is just too heavy. My frame is a little bit too heavy, so I need to put it over here or something. Okay, I'm just gonna let it sit there for just a minute. I don't want to leave it against my painting, but you guys can get the idea. You want to choose a frame that kind of goes with the aesthetic of your paper piece and just tape it inside, and then you can take photos of it, and then you can easily switch all your paper pieces out. I just quickly want to mention that I actually have a course that I've created for artists. It's called Styling Your Art 101. And in this course, I just go through all sorts of different ways to style your art in your own home and in such a way that you can help your ideal customer envision your art in their home. And I think it's so much better. Personally, I hate all kinds of mock-ups that you can get through any kind of like computer app or whatever. I think it's so much better to making your art relatable if you actually style the art in your own home. And if you don't have a great area in your home to style your art, I recommend finding somewhere that you can go with your art. Find an interior decorator, or go to your best friend's house who has a gorgeous home, and who would be willing to let you hang up your art to take photos for your collection launch. This is probably the most important thing for having a professional collection launch and a successful collection launch. I don't know how many times I've gone to artists like Instagram pages or even their online shops where they just have a square that is the piece of art. People also need to get almost like a sense of scale, and also a sense of what the substrate is when you are taking photographs, either for your website or for your shop, right? For whether it's Etsy, Shopify, I don't care where you're listing your pieces. You need to give the customer a sense of what it is that they're actually getting. And so having something in the frame that gives a sense of scale is really important. So I just wanted to mention some of those things as I am styling my art. This is probably one of the most critical things for launching a collection of work it's taking killer photographs of each one of your pieces. And the other secret that I have to tell you is that you should always take photos with your painting staged, but have more than one painting in each photo. So let's say I wanted to list this piece on Etsy. I'm going to take a photo, a close-up of it on this board. I'm probably going to show it styled in one other place in my home that's maybe a little bit more professional than this silly clipboard, okay? And then I'm going to take a long photo with some of the other paintings in the same frame with that paper piece. And what this does is it does something in a collector's brain that makes them want more than one of your paintings. And collectors for an artist is just pure gold. The more collectors that you can build, I mean, I would say that probably 75 to 80% of my sales are from returning customers, because they get one painting and then they want another one and another one. And when you photograph your art together, especially in a cohesive, layered look, then it invites your collectors to purchase more than one. And so I always do that. So at this moment in time, I am still just thinking, is my collection finished? Should I go ahead and list the pieces that I have and just kind of feel out how they do? I think I'm going to take some more photos, because taking the photos actually allows me to see if there's any composition errors. So some of the painted, not the paper pieces, but some of the paintings, I'm going to take individual photos of those and just look at them on my camera roll or on my phone, and then I'll be able to see, oh, it's just not quite right. Something's not sitting quite right. And that's when I'm in almost the editing stage of a collection launch. So, and I will probably continue to share on social media, to tease about the art that I'm making, give little hints, clues, sneak peeks, that type of thing. And yeah, so I'm getting really close, but I'm not quite there yet. So as I mentioned before, I think it's important to do some work on paper first before you start doing work on canvases. And this is because it really just helps you to build your skills and decide what kind of compositions are really working for the type of paintings that you're wanting to put out. It gives you practice and it allows you to build confidence as an artist. Not only that, you can then take the pieces that actually work and sell them on paper. It's a great way for you to sell art that's maybe at a much more affordable level. And so I'm going to share with you the 13 pieces that I ended up including in this collection. And I have some more work, but those pieces weren't quite dry yet. And oftentimes when I release a collection, the paper pieces may or may not actually sell. I think that paper pieces, are good for people who might not be able to afford a painting on canvas, but I think they're fun. And so I just like to offer them as sort of a bonus type of work at a much more affordable level. So these are the paper pieces that I ended up including in this collection. And like I said, I'll probably have some more that I'm gonna include later. So this one is one of my favorites that I did. There's this one. And there's this one. And so those are the 3 larger pieces. And then I have this one. This one. And I think you will be surprised that you can actually sell quite a few works on paper. And so if this is my learning experience and it ends up that I can make a little bit of income from these, then it's a win-win, a little bonus for me. And I do want to say that the other thing that's nice about doing all of these works on paper is that you can actually scan these and turn them into art prints. So that, and this one is also another one that I did for this collection. So then in terms of the pieces on canvas, I will go ahead and show you some of those pieces that are part of this collection as well. So this is one of the first ones that I did. I really like it. It has a 2.5 inch side and it's really messy and kind of just a lot more blended and just a very different composition than what I normally do. And then I have another one that is on that same kind of canvas with the 2.5 inch sides and with the peachy pink showing through in places. That is another one. And then I have that black one up there. That one's really fun. And then I have another 8x10, this one right here, and this one, which turned out really fun. This one, I'm still not quite sure if this one, there's something about the composition, even though I already listed it, it's maybe gonna get a makeover. So there's this one, which is another one that's like kind of the series of 3 that I did that same exact color background, just like that. And then over here, I have this one, this one, this one, this one, and that one, which you guys get to see me editing this one. And it ended up going in even a different direction from when I was editing it. And there's one other piece that I did that's a 12x12 that I just listed as well. I don't really feel like it goes with the collection because it's cold wax and oil. And one of my collectors had told me she just wanted it. So I went ahead and listed that one, but I wouldn't necessarily say that it belongs in the collection. So one of the most important things when you are putting together a collection of art, especially if it's in a newer sort of different style than maybe what you're known for, it's really important to build that anticipation and also to really just get the word out to your customers. And so while I was doing that, I found that I was getting a really great response from my customers, from my collectors and from my audience. And so I decided that I would just go ahead and do a softer launch, meaning that I didn't maybe spend as much time teasing out my audience and sharing all of the pieces with my customers. So I ended up, I think I'm about a day into this collection launch. I sent out an email after I listed all of the pieces to my collectors list, letting them know what the pieces are and really just giving them sort of this story that's behind this collection of art. And that sort of brings me to one of the most important pieces, which is to talk about the meaning and the theme behind your collection of art. That's probably the most important piece that you can remember when you are marketing, and that is to tell a story. And so while I feel like I did this sort of like softer launch, I really took the time to talk about sort of the meaning behind this newer work, and that is to really find a softer place. And I think that that's one of the things that I want to, that I'm really looking for in my own life, is just having this softer way of going about my business, stepping outside of hustle culture and removing some of these harder edges in my work is also a reflection of what I'm looking for in my own personal life, which is maybe having this softer approach to things. Okay. And so while it is maybe, still with super bright, loud colors, I am looking for this softer expression with my paintbrush. I'm also doing a lot more blending in between my colors and building up more layers in my work. And so because of that, I really took the time to talk about that in my email and then also on social media when I shared about this collection. So that is probably the number one tip that I have to give all of you. In addition to that, you really need to, when you're launching a collection, you need to talk about who the work is for. And I always tell the story of how I shared sort of the story behind one of my collections about how it was inspired by my mom and her love of quilting, and how I used to fall asleep to the sound of the sewing machine going every night. And it was really interesting because I launched that collection of art. I can't even remember, it was something about quilted heirloom collection or something along those lines. And I was sharing that story on social media and talking about just that story behind it. And it was really interesting because one of the ladies who ended up purchasing 2 of the paintings purchased them for her mother, who was a quilter. And so don't second guess the importance of telling a story behind your collection, because you never know who it's going to speak for. So even just finishing the sentence, "this artwork is for," is going to be so incredibly important. So, I could say, I can't remember exactly what I said for this collection, but it was something along the lines of, this collection is for the woman who is wanting to find a softer place in their creativity and in their lives, who is looking to exit hustle culture and find beauty in the everyday moments, or something along those lines. And so that, just by speaking that out, you are helping your collector make those emotional connections to your artwork. And in my video from earlier in the week, I talked about, how storytelling through your origin story, that helps make connections, helps your audience make connections to your art. And this is sort of the same thing, only within the collection of art making, you want to invite your audience and your potential customers, or even your ideal customer who's maybe not your customer yet, to make that emotional connection to your collection of art. So I had a lot of fun putting together this collection. Like I said, I launched it maybe 24 hours ago, and I have sold, I think, around 7 or 8 paintings. And so I am about midway through kind of the promotion period. I'll probably go back on social media today, and I will go ahead and, share some of the art a few more times, just to engage my audience and remind them, hey, I have all of this art out there, and you might want to grab one of these pieces. I like to, share maybe 2 or 3 times after that first day. So yeah, I feel pretty good about this collection, and I feel like the right people, my collectors, showed up and bought some really fun pieces. So how exactly did my collection launch go? And more importantly, what can I learn from it? So one of the tricky things about switching up your style and shifting in the kind of art that you are creating is the fact that you run this risk of maybe not resonating with your collectors and with your audience on the same level that maybe you are actually used to. And so for me, because I am fairly well established in my art style and in the type of art that my collectors and my audience expect from me, it was a little bit of a experiment to actually launch this collection of art. So how much did I actually sell? So I ended up selling right around, I think, 8 paintings, which I feel like for this collection launch, where I didn't really feel really like I was on solid footing in terms of, I still kind of feel a little bit unsure about the art that I am creating, which I know sounds kind of silly, but I feel like when it comes to putting your work out there, anytime you make a shift, there's this uneasiness that goes with it, right? And I don't necessarily have that same level of confidence as I do when I launch a collection of my mini crazy floral bouquets, right? Because I have that proven track record of being able to sell those. And so when I launched my collection of minis, there isn't this uncertainty of whether or not it will resonate with people. But also, when I am making this shift in my style, I also have this almost like feeling of, are these pieces really what I want them to be, you know? And so that's something that comes up, and I just wanted to share that with you, because if you are feeling that in your own collection launches, and as you are really trying to hone in on your style and fine tune your own process, there will be moments where you will feel like that. Maybe you're not as confident in the type of art that you're putting out, and that's okay. So, which pieces sold and what can I learn from it? I'm not even really sure that there is a common theme between the art that sold and what didn't. Okay, so let me share with you, I have one piece that I said early on was not really part of this collection, but that piece sold. So that is one of the sales. I'm not going to get it down because it was actually a edit from one of my previous collection launches. So anyways, I sold 2 pieces on paper, which, you know, is not surprising to me, because if people have the choice between paper versus canvas, they're probably going to choose canvas, even if the price range is a little bit higher. And so a lot of times when I do a launch of just paper pieces, that's when I usually sell the most paper pieces. So I kind of knew going into it that by selling both paper pieces and pieces on canvas, that most likely the paper pieces weren't going to get their place in the spotlight, right? Because that's just what happens. So I sold this one, which I really love this piece, and I'm not surprised at all that it sold. It's one of my favorites in terms of all the work that I've done on paper. And it was one of the first ones I did after getting home from my art retreat. So I'm not surprised at all. I'll probably scan this one and turn it into an art print. And this is the other piece that I also sold, which, you know, doesn't surprise me either, especially since I'm really well known for using a lot of green. And yeah, it's still kind of going into this newer style where there's a lot more blending and messy lines. So I sold those 2 pieces to the same person, which, you know, that happens often. Okay, so what else sold? I have this piece that sold, which no surprise there, because my black pieces always do really, really well in terms of sales. And it's funny, this one actually sold to a collector who owns a larger black piece. So that makes sense to me, because collectors like to purchase pieces of art that kind of go together. And so it doesn't surprise me that this particular collector purchased a second piece in black. So this one I really loved, and I'm not surprised that it sold. And so it's interesting to me that piece sold, which is a 12 by 12, but my other dark piece that's part of this collection also sold. And that one was also one of my favorites, so I'm not really surprised. It was this piece. So this one is a dark green emerald. And again, I'm not really surprised that this piece sold either. I think it was one of my favorites. I really like the jar that I created for this piece. And it's kind of fairly similar to work that I've done in the past. So I'm not entirely sure. It's a little bit messier, so it does sort of incorporate some of the newer techniques that I've been learning. This piece is another one that sold, and this one is an 11 by 14. Again, I think it has a good blend of my normal style with some of the elements of what I am choosing to incorporate into my work. And so I have no idea. I don't know why this one sold over some of the other ones. And yeah, I'm not entirely sure. But I am happy that one of the 11 by 14s actually did sell. And then this is actually, I think it's still kind of wet. This is the other piece that sold that's on canvas. So that would be one. Oh, I forgot the other one. So this isn't the only other one. I'm missing one. So this one again was to one of my regular collectors, which I actually thought was kind of an interesting choice because this one is definitely outside of what I normally do. And so I love that this collector chose this piece because it really is something different for me. And last but not least is this one right here. And I'm not really surprised that this one sold either because I feel like it's, again, you know, the bloom, the peony that's sort of the center of interest is kind of in your face type of center of interest. And it really kind of, that part is a lot like me. The background and some of the other elements in the composition are then incorporating these newer expressions. And so, yeah, I'm not surprised that this one sold either. And I'm happy with how much sold. So where do I go from here, and how can I then take what I learned from this collection launch and use that information to put more work out within this same sort of style and expression? So for me, I really feel like I'm just in this learning phase of really trying to figure out what is exciting to me again. And for me, that means just continuing to do a lot more work on paper and explore within this similar capacity. One of the things that I thought about in terms of some of the art that did not sell is maybe I want to come back in with some other elements of texture and put some thicker oil paint and brush strokes into it, especially some that are like this one. You know, do I want to add even more brush strokes and texture to it? I don't know. So I'm not sure that there was a consistent winner in terms of, oh my gosh, this type of painting is really working well for my audience / collectors. I think I need to do some more work and really just fine tune my process. And so I'm kind of going back to the drawing board and going to start looking at how do I want to continue this shift and what do I want to take with me. And I'm not sure that there's a clear or definite answer at this moment in time. I just know that I am excited again about making art, and I know that, you know, as I continue to shift and grow and learn, that the right audience will show up, and I will just continue to share on social media and on Instagram, especially what type of art that I'm making. And, I will say that sometimes it takes, continuing to share your art, because not all the time people don't always see your posts. And so I will continue to share my pieces. And like I said, I might change some of them up a little bit. We'll see. So thanks for joining me. And I hope that you learned a lot from this vlog, and that you feel confident in sort of having a better understanding of what goes into a collection launch. And maybe you're inspired to start putting together your own collections of art. We're going into the holiday season, which is one of the best seasons for collection launches. And let me know if you have any questions. And thanks for watching.